Do you see a bear in this picture? Look again. My third day in Denali, which is my second full day, was a lot sunnier than the first day. So I decided to go out and do some hiking. Okay, so here we are back at the East River Bridge, the end of the bus line. And ahead of me, you see the road that we were walking up yesterday. But that's not the way I'm going today. I'm going to go down the stairs and I'm going to walk along the riverbed. What am I doing here? When I was hiking up to the landslide yesterday, we were looking down on the landscape below us and we saw some moose, not by the river, but in a nice tundra area on the far side of the river. And that's sort of what I'm going to try and go for, just get up into that tundra. I don't know if I can do that or not. All right, so here's the East Fork River to the left. And then you see this hill. That's the hill I want to get up on. And then to the right, you can see where the tributary comes in, kind of this valley here. Okay, now that I'm looking, I think it's not this hill I need to get up on. I think it's that one. That is definitely where we saw the moose last time. So my question is, can I get there? This is not easy walking. Okay, so I'm going to apologize for this footage. Clearly, I've never used the action cam this way before, and you can definitely see that. So I actually had it on a headband, which definitely does not make for the best picture when you're trying to pick your way over uneven ground. So I almost didn't include it, but I still think it's really interesting because this is me walking along a braided riverbed, and you can just see what I'm thinking, right? Like I'll get to this point right here and it's just like, okay, how do I go from here? Am I actually going to cross here? Where do I jump across the stream, here or further down? And you just see me looking all around, like, what are my options? What are my options? What are my options? And that pretty well describes what it's like to hike along a braided riverbed. It's not easy. And it's not just not easy because the rocks are, tricky under your feet and everything. You're literally decision making the entire walk. Choosing where to cross. You think you're on an island and, this little rivulet next to you looks not too bad. You can get back anytime you want. Nope. Suddenly, another rivulet joins it and now it's a raging stream. So it's a little crazy. See what's behind me? You can see a lot of things behind me, but what I'm looking at right here is that thing right there. That is the toe of a landslide. What is the toe of a landslide? It's the very end part that the landslide is reached. A lot of people think of landslides as a one-time event, like the hill's in place and then it slides and then it's done sliding. It doesn't do that. It's an ongoing thing where sometimes it's gradually creeping downward and then suddenly, the downward force exceeds the friction that's holding things in place and then it goes really fast. And we usually, like when we talk about landslides, we talk about that fast part as the landslide, but it's all landslide. So I don't know if this landslide here is the landslide we were looking at yesterday, but it might be. It's a pretty big slide. So let's go take a look. Kind of a close-up shot here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is not the big slide that took out the road. And there were some parts heading up to that I was worried about slide potential. I was talking with my hiking partner, who was this random dude who happened to be hiking up at the same time as me. That's what people traveling alone do. They just pick up random hiking partners. Yeah, so we were talking about that being another slide risk. Like if they rebuild that road where the slide is, would it slide somewhere else? Could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this black stuff here is coal. And let's take a look. Yeah, that's coal. There's coal in them there hills. I also found this lovely chunk of obsidian. It's cool. It's all sorts of stuff all jumbled together here. Yeah, I just tried crossing down by the end there, which is also looks like the toe of a landslide that's gotten cut off. And the ground is so mushy. Like the rocks I stepped on just were totally sinking underneath me. I actually got one of my shoes wet, so now I'm going to be uncomfortable for the rest of the day. I think I can cross here though. Hopefully. There's a family that kind of passed me and went further ahead because they're not filming. And they got across somehow, so. Hello. As you probably noticed, this is not the East River. This is the Teclanica River by my campground again. I thought I should tell you the end of what happened with that trip. It came to a very abrupt end, and so there was no time to really film and explain what happened. So you saw me get stuck and backtrack. There was a family that was passing just in front of me, and they were walking up on the shelf that marks the high water line. I decided to follow what they were doing. As we got to the landslide and a little past that landslide that I filmed, the river, or one of the streams of the river, ran literally right up against the edge of the cliff, so I had to jump over. Kept going. I saw that the family who'd been walking ahead of me had stopped and was resting at the end of an island. So I got out there and I realized why they stopped. There really was no way forward without waiting. And to be clear, this is not like some of those braids I was traversing where, sorry, I'm just making sure. There have been bears up this way, so I just want to make sure, and you'll understand why in a little bit. These channels were pretty deep. The current was pretty swift. Like I tested them out with my walking pole, and so I could see the depth, and also I could feel the current on the pole as I was putting it down in there. Even for the second or so it took to get it down to the bottom, I could feel it was quite a current. So it seemed like a good place to have lunch. And I sat down, I was conversing with the family. They were eating as well. And the mom had her binoculars out, and she was like, "Oh, look, there's a caribou on the far bank." And we looked, and yeah, it was a caribou. So we were taking pictures of the caribou. There were two caribou. One actually ran across the river, ran up the slope behind us, probably about 100 yards away. I don't know. It wasn't terribly close. And so then we were discussing whether or not it was possible to get across this particular stream that was right in front of us. And we were talking about if there was a way to put rocks in to build like stepping stones. And in fact, we even tried it, and it wasn't possible. But at some point in that process, the dad said, who was not helping to put in stepping stones, the dad said, "Oh, look, the caribou's back." So the big caribou, there was kind of a juvenile caribou was the one that ran across the river. And then there was a big caribou, a big mama caribou, that was still in the shrubbery on the other side of the river. We were trying to get pictures of it because it was a little closer. And then the daughter said, "There's a bear." And we looked, and there was indeed a bear. It was upstream from the caribou, and heading, on the other side of the river, mind you. But it was heading our way, downstream, which is the direction we were. And we said, This is a little closer than 300 yards, which is the distance you're supposed to maintain from a grizzly. You're not supposed to run from a bear, so we didn't actually run for the first bit. And also, we didn't want to turn our back on the bear, right? So we were kind of walking away very quickly, while also every so often one of us would turn around and observe what the bear was doing. We were still fairly close at first. And then the bear started walking, it kept walking in our direction. And we were like, oh my gosh. And so we were walking really fast as we could over the stones, which, like I said, this was not easy going. And then at some point, the bear started running in our direction. He was actually running after the caribou. We didn't see him take down the caribou. And in fact, I think the caribou got away. But I think the bear was charging the caribou. And while it was distracted, we took advantage of that time to just basically run as fast as we could. When I first saw the bear and we knew that we had to get out of there, I had grabbed my bear spray. My bear spray was in the side pocket of my backpack. And when it started running towards us, I was scared enough that I actually pulled the safety tab off. I had it ready to fire. But he did thankfully not cross the river. And we put a good kilometer or so between us and the bear. We could see the bear as a lump in the distance. They had binoculars and they were just scoping him out. And the bear went up to where the rivers intersected and then turned up the other river. So we were safe, and with our hearts pumping at full speed, we made our way back to the ranger station at the bridge. We were all on an adrenaline high, and I had some idea that I would, maybe walk from there up to Sable Pass. And then I was like, well, maybe I could take the bus to Sable Pass and walk down from Sable Pass so I don't have to walk uphill, because at that point I'd walked, 4 or 5 miles already? Maybe closer to 6. I have to check. But once I got on the bus and started riding, the adrenaline faded away and I was just exhausted. The grizzly that we saw yesterday was a lot closer, but I was in the bus, right? And it's not the same. It's really not the same. When you're afraid that the grizzly might, decide that you are better prey than a caribou. So the reason I'm looking around, there was a grizzly right upstream by the rest area not too long ago, which is admittedly a couple miles up. But bears travel long distances. We know this from experience. I'm glad I took that hike. Not glad I had to run. I had a good time today. This is a good memory. A few last takeaways here. One, there were people who forded the main channel of the river. They were wearing high boots though. So not, even with regular waterproof hiking boots, you couldn't do it. So just keep that in mind in case you want to get over to that side. That's a note for future Robin. Although I'm not sure future Robin really wants to be over there now that I think about it. And then the other note is, after I sort of abandoned the idea of getting across to that that highland across the river, I was thinking I could get around to the landslide that I was looking at yesterday. And you also can't do that without having high waterproof boots. Family I was with had regular waterproof hiking boots, and those were not tall enough to wade through the current that we were looking at.